I'm Fred Lybrand. Jody's my wife. We have 5 kids who have made it to adulthood, but were homeschooled from birth to college. Their ages are about a 9-year gap, a son, daughter, son, son, son. Now we have 11 grandchildren, some of whom are, the oldest is 6, but she's being homeschooled right now. What we're here for is to answer questions and to think things through and to really, in my mind, I'm a little ambitious, but it's kind of, I want to actually, I don't know, change the world, I guess I would say. And in changing the world, I think homeschooling is one of the things that can pull it off, because it's providing an education that really lets people, kids especially, learn to think for themselves. And we're not really in that kind of world just now. So what I want to talk about is what probably interferes more than anything that we do. Get my camera straight a little bit. And that is our anxiety. So I talk about this a good bit because I'm wanting you to understand and appreciate. Thanks, Liz, for saying that sounds good. I want you to understand and appreciate exactly why anxiety is such a problem and why you've got to solve it, not just in your kids, but especially in yourself. Because here's the thing. If you have anxiety, what will happen is it will drive you to behave in certain ways that are probably not wise. And we're aiming for wisdom here, because that changes everything. So here's how it works. So if you're anxious, there's a simple cure, and that is to solve the problem. Like, if whatever's making you anxious goes away, you are no longer anxious. That's the way the game works. And so if we could get you to solve the problem effectively, then we're on the way. And so our anxiety and worry and all that's kind of motivation. In fact, it's funny, people like public speaking. I forever ago figured out that I couldn't tell if I was excited or worried about speaking publicly. So I just assumed that I was excited. Sorry about that. And public speaking became something I wasn't anxious about. I just misinterpreted the emotion. And it's that way. You can be excited or you can be anxious, but when it drives your thinking, it's a problem. So if we can get you to solve a problem, you're golden. Here's the challenge. If you are creative and you can figure out solutions to problems, and you have a decent process for doing that, that is awesome, unless you have anxiety, because anxiety will dampen your creativity. So like a test anxiety, I don't know if you ever had this before. If you hadn't, you'll encounter it, or your kids will. But test anxiety is when you know all the information, you go into the test, and then you panic. You have a sense of you're going to fail, lose out, whatever's going on in your head. And as a result, that anxiety just shuts down your ability to recall. Stress just locks down things emotionally, and so your frontal cortex just doesn't kick in. So in my experience is that even though the solution would actually take the anxiety away, we've got to get the anxiety to go away before you can find a solution. And you're going to run in this, look, with parenting and relationships and friendships and clubs you belong to, and homeschooling especially. And so what we're trying to do is offer some solutions and insights, but I want to keep stressing this point about your anxiety. Okay. So here's how you deal with anxiety. There are 2 things I want you to focus on. Number 1, anxiety is about the future. So when we're depressed, sad, or something, that's about the past. So we're sad about something that happened in the past. Anxiety is when we look ahead into the future and we see something, and this is important, bad, that doesn't make us feel good, something bad, and we imagine it. And then what happens is we imagine it as what's going to happen. That's why we're actually stressed and anxious, because we're sort of in a place in our head where we know that's going to happen. It's like we turn into prophetess or a prophet, and we know the future. In fact, I would say people who are anxious are usually people with great faith. In fact, their faith is so great, they actually believe that they know the future. So you want to start by asking yourself, do I know the future? And if you can get yourself to say, no, I don't. Now, if you say the odds are, that's fine. Odds are great. I get odds. You know, it's like they say in boxing, the biggest and the baddest doesn't always win, but that's how you bet. But you can get surprises, sporting events, economies, everything. You know, we're sitting here right now on the 7th day of the attack of Hamas on Israel in 2023. I don't know anything beyond this moment. So I don't know what's going to happen. But it's, you know, difficult and overwhelming in many ways to see what's shown and hearing arguments on both sides and confusion and media and all the rest of it. But here's the thing. If you know that this is the start of World War III in your head, you're going to be pretty stressed about World War III. If you're like me and go, I don't know what's going to happen, you're not as stressed. I'm concerned. I'm interested. I'm burdened. I hurt, especially for innocent people who are in the midst of the fray. I hurt for people in war as well. But what I don't do is I don't know the future. And that's what I want to invite you to do. If you look at anything you're anxious about and you see what you're anxious about, I was asking Jody, I said, what do you worry most about? She said, my kids coming to know the Lord and their eternity. And I said, so you're worried that they may not? And she said, yes, they'll drift. Okay, that's a good thing. The truth is, we don't know what's going to happen with their eternity. We can sow, we can share our views, we can cheer. But if you only think one thing's going to happen, you're going to be anxious if you don't want it. So what I've learned to do, what I get people to do, is to generate 2 more options. So when you have 3 options about something, you don't know how it's going to turn out. So, you know, the kids could turn out great. They could turn out terrible. It could be a mixed bag. It could be, like, I think it's going to be about them and their relationship with God. And that's kind of their business. It's not mine. Now, doesn't mean their grampy doesn't want to cheer for them. I was a pastor for 25 years. I have an opinion or two. But the truth is that I don't know that. And because I don't know it and I have those options, I can't stress the same way. Just like I watch the kids and how they parent. Some of the things they do, I go, I wouldn't do it that way, making it hard on yourself. But I don't know how they're going to turn out. They're all running their own parenting experiments. And overall, I bet they all do pretty well some way or another. So when you get those options in your head, this thing with Israel and Hamas, it could go for a short period of time. It could go for a long period of time. It could get the warring part squashed, and it could lead to a rebuilding of relationships where people don't want to do that again. You know, a lot of that's happened, like in the world. Nobody wants to use a nuclear weapon because that's been done before, and it's horrific. So I say all this on anxiety just to say that if you look at your problem, like how your kids will do, how they'll turn out, even with something like my child is mad about math. Okay, we'll talk about that. We usually do. But you don't know if that child doesn't turn around and become great at math. Einstein was not good at math. He had an uncle that kind of helped him figure out it's like hunting. And so we're going out to find these exotic animals, you know, whatever we're hunting. And but he said the hunting is the we're solving for N. N's the thing we're after. And that uncle's metaphor for Einstein put him on a different path to do pretty well in math, as you well know. So that's the trick. The trick is to generate 3 options. They don't have to be like you're sure any of them could happen, but that they're just possible, in that area, it could happen this way. And the moment you don't know the future is the moment your anxiety will calm down. People say what we fear is fear itself, or they fear the unknown. Total baloney. You can't fear the unknown because you don't know it. You don't know what to fear. I don't know even how that started. I'm just, some politician, I'm sure. But you don't fear the unknown. And that's why when you generate options, your anxiety will calm down. You don't know how things are going to go. Is the business going to thrive? Is it going to be okay? Is it going to go broke? If it goes broke and we start a new business, does it turn out better than before? You don't know. That's the nature of the game. And so the more you can be agnostic about knowing the future, you can have hope. That's super. But don't know this bad option is going to happen unless you really do. And then even there, how do you know? So there's one other piece, and then I'm going to hush. And the other piece of dealing with anxiety is to separate reality from problems. Okay. So a problem by its nature can be solved. That's the nature of a problem. A reality can't be solved. And once you know something can't be solved, can't do anything about it, you'll calm down about it. You'll think about the implications of it, but separating and understanding the things you can't change, that's the way they say it, wisdom, know the difference, change things I can, accept the things I can't. That's the idea in that serenity prayer, that when you know reality, you won't fiddle with that piece. You just accept it as true. And once you do that, you can simply calm down. So if you have a child, let's say with, let's take dyslexia. Jody has dyslexia. So you have a child with severe dyslexia. Accepting that they process things different allows you to get out of like denial or fear or weirdness. You can be concerned about what it does for you, but accepting the reality of it, that it's not going away, or like we did with our son's cerebral palsy. Trip has CP, mildly, that right side. He's called a hemiplegic. And it's affected his life. But what we did is we didn't know what his future would be. A lot of the literature says they tend to not get married. People don't, spouses don't like damaged goods, if I can say it that way. And so we could worry about that. We could worry about him education, work sports. We worry about, quote, self-image, all kinds of things. But what we did instead was we accepted the reality of it and didn't know the future. And so from there, we just simply with him worked on what can you do and what can't you do. With dyslexia, a lot of that is learning how to process information in a way you can recall it. And your brain may work a little different, but if you can learn a way to manage it, you'll do great. They've had a lot of time with it. And so there are skills and things you can work on to improve that element as it relates to reading and data information and numbers. So that's the other part of the trick. You want to solve the problems, but you got to calm your anxiety down. You do that by looking at what you're afraid of and thinking of two other options that are also possible, and get those clear in your head. Your anxiety will calm down, and then separate what's real, that can't change. It's how it is. There's nothing to do about that. But that allows you to look at, well, what are the things that I can change? What goes into the problems? So I hope that's helpful to you. And I'd love, if you have something you're anxious about, I can walk you through this. If you post it in there, if you want to come on to the Zoom site and join us and chat, that would be excellent too. So there we are. How's everyone doing? Happy Friday 13th, as it were. And let's get going with some questions. Let's see what's in here. Oh, sorry. The door, Jody just walked in. That made me jump. So I'm going to put the password in here. You want to join us on Zoom? See if I can get over here for Miss Joanna. Sorry. Are you in the picture yet?
I don't know, since we're not on that camera.
Yeah, we have a delay. Okay, there you are. No, stay still. There we go.
Shut
All
up.
right. So we are cheery and happy. Let's get my chat up here. Sounds great. Liz told me. I appreciated that. And questions. I just explained about anxiety one more time. And so that was
Alrighty.
all fun, especially with what's going on in the world these days, right?
Yep.
So what kind of questions you guys have? Get this one up. Good morning. Back from vacation. Wonderful. Hope it was great. Good morning. So got that up there. So what kind of problems, challenges, hopes, questions, anything about homeschooling, anxiety? It doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter. We're in range, but I'm just sitting here thinking about things such as homeschool, marriage, relationships, learning, these fun things that we like to do and think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know people have questions.
Yeah.
They need to be brave.
What questions
ask
do you
them.
run into? What did women always or did always ask you? I'm asking you as a woman. Is that okay to call you a woman?
Yes. I mean, I think that we talked about it before, like how do you balance the, life when you're homeschooling. We talked about that a good bit. That was a good, and then socialization, which I think is surely people aren't still asking that question. How do you get your kids socialized? Well, you put them in other activities, you invite people over, you go to church. That was always a big one though. Maybe dealing with family members that aren't exactly cheering for you to homeschool. That was an issue at times.
And what'd you do about those?
And pretty much was kind of, politely saying, this is what we're going to do. It's not a comment on, I had one of our parents that's like, well, were we wrong to put you in public school? I'm like, this is not a comment on anything you did to us or for us or with us. This is what we're choosing to do with our family. And really more just settled in myself that the phrase, the proof is in the pudding. It was just going to take time for them to see, for all of us to see, is this working or not? And obviously they settled down. And I think probably were appreciative. Actually, I never checked back after it was all said and done, especially in comparison to some of the other kids in their life.
Cool. So Michelle threw out here, she said, hello, I have a 7-year-old. She's always trying to get out of doing her math and reading. My question is, how long should she be doing homeschooling? Many hours total for her age. Okay, so there's some complexity to that question, which is great. I like complexity once I can simplify it. But so she has two things going on. She doesn't like it. And kind of the implication is then how much time do we put into it, right? So as a question of her not liking it, why does she not like it? What does she not like about it? In fact, I'm going to tell you a little something about human behavior that will be helpful in a moment. But if you could type in there what exactly is going on, because it sounds like we just go too long. And if that's true, that would be something to solve. If it's not going too long, then there may be something else going on. And I have a suspicion, but I don't want to yammer about that until I see something. Okay. So let's see if I got data and stuff. So Michelle, why is she, I'm sure you're typing, why is she trying to get out of her math and reading? What's going on with that? So is Is it the length of time? Is it the quality of it? Is it her competency? Is it what? Is it, is she having to do it while she's having to sit out in the rain? I don't know. Just saying there's something going on with her and it's going to be unique to her. All, children, one of the things you want to figure out is children are not all actually the same. They're similar and there are a lot of some similarities, but people can dislike something for different reasons. So,
well, and one of the things too, if just even the phrase trying to get out of it makes me think, does that work sometimes for her? Because usually we don't try for things we know aren't going to work. So does sometimes she get out of it by doing something? And so she has hope that that might happen again. So
reason this is way behind. I'll let it figure it out. Yeah, so far I'll probably switch to Zeta for a second. No, I'll go ahead and address this a little bit. So Michelle she got knocked off or something like that of the internet. So with a child, here's how children work. Here's what they like. Okay. They like everyone. They do things because doing them makes them feel better. That's the game. Everything in life is really about us wanting to feel good. And we're trying to feel good. And we feel good sometimes because we're doing something that we enjoy. And sometimes we feel good because we're avoiding something we wouldn't enjoy. And that's kind of the trick. So when a child gets to the point of enjoying, when they've conquered it and they enjoy math and reading and writing, you'll see there's no problem, right? Now, Jody's got a point. If there's a
negotiation.
Well, no, if there's a reward structure, like if she's been rewarded, for her, I'd look at her and I go, well, obviously she feels better arguing about doing her schoolwork than doing it. That makes her feel better. And it probably makes her feel better because our kids get us into negotiations and she probably wins some. And so if she wins some, then that makes her feel good because she avoided math. Now, the challenge is, why would a child not enjoy math or reading or writing? What's going on that a child wouldn't enjoy that? And everybody would look at that, Jody would, and say, well, it's obvious, math's not fun. But see, that's not completely true because there are a lot of people that seem to enjoy math. And there's sometimes that math comes in quite handy. When I've caught a mistake on a bill at a restaurant or something like that, that was very helpful. So the trick is, if you're good at something, it's probably tolerable, at least. If you're good at it, it probably feels good to do it. It feels good to complete the assignment. It feels good to get homeschooling done and my days free. The same with reading. If you learn to enjoy reading because you're reading things that are fun to read, I mean, that's it. Don't we watch movies and read books because they're going to make us feel good? And don't we feel good that we avoid books and movies that would make us feel bad? That's the game. And so when you're structuring things with your child, what you're caught in is trying to figure out, how do I help you feel good about this process? Now, most kids don't want to sit down and do 2 hours of math or an hour of math or something like that. That's not something you'd sign up for. That's why it's education. It's not just all play. But once they get good at it, they can get engaged in a book, in the math, in writing. Children don't like to write. That's what our writing course does for everyone, is it teaches children how to enjoy writing and how to enjoy their own voice. And once they enjoy writing, they'll write. Once they enjoy reading, they'll read. Once they enjoy math, they'll enjoy it. So you have to look at this, and there are two things going on. One is the curriculum or process you're doing with math really teaching your daughter, let's say, what she needs to learn. Now, 7's pretty young. We really didn't start any of our kids on formal math until 8 years old. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. Might do math backs or something, but it just wasn't a thing. And, like starting at 8, our youngest started at 8 and finished calculus and majored in math and economics at the University of Texas in Austin, and did fine. There's not a correlation with early start in math and doing well later. Americans are awesome in the early years internationally, and then we stink in the later years because math doesn't work that way. Your brain needs to be ready for math. And so there's a readiness piece that you have to have. But if you set up your homeschool to where the child understands expectations, they know exactly what to do, you go slow enough in math for them to learn it, but not so slow that they're bored. If they're getting ahead of themselves and don't learn foundational stuff, kids get lost, and it's just frustrating. So if you set up a game plan where, look, you do your work, here's your hour, let's say, of math or reading, whatever, and there's your timer. And when it's over, you're supposed to be done with so many pages or so many problems or whatever. If you don't get them done, you're going to have to do them later in the day. It's some other designated time, which means they're going to miss out on playing. So when you have that structure there, and then they're learning their math and they're getting, growing, and they conquer it, those things in combination feel good. They feel good that they're not having to do math in the afternoon. They feel good that they got it done. They feel good that we didn't have a conflict. All those things come together. When you see a child wrestling and all the rest, they don't feel good. They feel good about arguing and winning the argument. And that's got to change. You got to change that game, because they can't go through life doing that. They can't show up at work and decide the boss is the problem and I don't feel like doing work. It's like you have to learn this discipline and this game of how to ultimately motivate yourself. That becomes monumental, as it were. Anything you want to add to all that?
Just thinking about the feels good. It doesn't feel good to a couple of years down the road realize that everybody's way ahead of you in math or reading. I don't know if she could grasp that, but sometimes, with homeschool, this is just what we do. And your attitude is something we're going to work on separately from doing it. We're going to do it, and we're going to have a good attitude about it. It's really not whether you like it or not. But Fred's right. The more success they have in it, the least resistance, I think.
Good. So Michelle threw out, she's only reading 3 pages, not a lot of writing, and I have her do her math facts. Yeah, so if you would just limit it to a period of time, like her math facts, so she works on them, and it might just be, you want to start at like 15 minutes or something like that. Something that's doable, she gets it, and it gets done. The reading, I'm not sure what that means if she's reading 3 pages. You might invite her at her age to read aloud to you. So you're making sure comprehension and pronunciation, what's going on in her brain, you need it on the outside because you don't know. So you might try that. And, writing, y'all could make it fun. She could tell you a story. You could write it down. Joe'd like to do that. You might have writing to have to do with writing a short letter to a grandparent or a friend or something like that.
Or she could still be doing copy work.
That's true. It's all that. You're on a good course.
Yeah.
She's just 7.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Chillax. All right. Zeta throws out, I actually suffer from anxiety. I appreciate you sharing that. Going on a plane and letting my thoughts go crazy. I wasn't able to control it, even taking my medication coming back. I'm sorry, it was a little easier. My husband sat next to me this time coming back. I wasn't able to let my kids know what I was going on with my emotions and thoughts, and I hope I never pass this to them. Yeah, this doesn't have to be something you pass to them. My kids, I meant to say that, but I did explain to them what was going on. It's just something that I deal with. This goes, I was never like this before. I could get into a plane. I was in a fearful just after I had a car accident a year ago. It just overwhelmed my emotions, and all that is just different seasons. Yeah. So with something like that, so you went through a traumatic event and you did what's called instant learning. That's how most of our phobias occur. So we have something like a traumatic event in a car. And so then, I'm guessing here, but I'm probably right. So it's travel, it's accidents that happen and things that you can't control that are outside of your control. And so the plane flight, you've got to be thinking, we're going to crash, we're going to wreck. I remember there was a lady next to me one time on a flight, and I could tell she was very nervous. And I looked about flying, and I finally looked at her and said, listen, I'm a pastor in a church, and God has told me I'm not dying today. So I think you're going to be okay. And oddly enough, she kind of settled down. We had a nice chat and other stuff. So some of it is getting our mind on other things, but with the flight, you need to notice, did the flight work? Did it land? Did it turn out safe? And the reason you need to do that is because what we normally do, like if we're scared of elevators, we get off the elevator and we go, phew, it didn't happen that time. Oh, the plane didn't crash that time, but next time, well, it might. The odds of you, this won't help you, but the odds of you being in a car wreck on the way to the airport are way higher than crashing in a flight. So now made you nervous about both, but it's actually getting in your mind an awareness that your predictor is not that good. You had in your mind that it would be bad of some type, and it didn't turn out that way. So you need to notice that, because the more of those experiences you pile up, as we say, quoting Emerson, the greater part of courage is having done it before. And once you go through something enough times, you start figuring out, yeah, it's not a big deal. And it's the panic and the trauma that creates the moment, because we're imagining what's going to happen. You go through enough of those things. They did this with the space program back in the day when they were going to send them to the moon. And they would take them out in the desert, and part of it was a filtering thing, but they'd drop them in the desert with, a piece of thread and a needle or something like that. And you got to survive and figure out how to get out of it. And once they go through all that, because they didn't need you, hundreds of thousands of miles away off in space, and they need you to punch a button and turn a dial, they don't need you freaking out. So after they survive that stuff in the, in all their training, they go, what's punching a button and doing a dial, right? So some of that's just the experience. So as you fly and ride in a car and all the rest, you start figuring out that it's not going to happen. But what I would do, I would encourage you to do the next time you fly is, one, you need to shoot straight with yourself and just say, am I a prophetess? Do I know it's going to wreck? No. It may go great, right? It may encounter some turbulence and we go, oh, and, get scared, spill a Coke on ourselves, and then we're fine. Okay. It may crash, but all those mays mean I don't know how it's going to turn out. The other thing you can do is you can think beyond the moment, like, why are you on a plane? And the answer was vacation in this context, or to see family. Yeah, so you want to think about that good thing that you do want that makes you feel good, seeing family, like getting off the plane and hugging and saying hi, and all that fun stuff. So if you get something further out that you actually will feel good about, that can organize what you're going through in the moment. It's very true about your kids. Let's just go full circle. If you can get your child to think about finishing and enjoying the afternoon, they'll tolerate and make sense of doing their schoolwork that they may or may not fully enjoy. But that's, the basic game. And inside of that, you've got medicine, you've got counseling, coaching, you may have some, some experiences, but in large measure, it's learning to be honest about not knowing the future, and then going through some experiences that let you build your confidence up, and it's a serious thing. Jody, when we first got married, she didn't get her driver's license till late in life, or, 19 or so, which would be late in Alabama. And back then, and she didn't want to drive on highways of any kind. Moving to San Antonio was going to be an issue for us because there are bigger roads than Midland, Texas. But she had a reason for it, and that was her older sisters and her grandmother were killed in a car accident when Jody was a baby. And so that affected the whole system. And as she sorted it out, she didn't want to be responsible, like the trauma in her family. She didn't want to be the one that causes that kind of trauma in somebody else's. So she'd imagine, wrecking or doing something and hurting a lot of people. Well, in the course of time, she started figuring out, but she did want to take the kids to the the zoo, and she did want to be able to go shop, and she did want to do things. So she gradually started working on how to have those experiences. So for a while, she could drive on the frontage road down to the Forum instead of getting on the highway. Did you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I remember suggesting it when we moved down there. You could go the whole way without getting on the main, but now she'll get on the interstate. She won't just hop in the car and drive across country still, but building up those experiences and letting those become part of your history is part of the solution.
Yeah.
Right. So Beth says, somewhat of a random question. Did you require your children to keep their room neat? Not so random. Yeah, I have in the parenting, I think in the parenting book or after it. No, a friend of mine, I may have shared this one day, said, hey, what about keeping their rooms neat? His son was 10th grade at the time. And I said, oh, I got a great solution. What you do is you get a big container, and every day that he doesn't clean his room, you'll throw $10 in that container. And at the end of the month, you're going to send all that money to whoever you don't like the most. Planned Parenthood, Democrats, I don't care, whoever you don't like. I knew him, so I knew some things he wouldn't like. And I told him, yeah, you save all of this money for him not cleaning his room and give it to a cause that you hate. And he looked at me and said, so you don't think he's the problem? I said, no, he's not the problem. You are. If you want him to keep a room clean, get him to clean it. But it's also his room. Do you really care? Is that something he needs to learn? Is there a boundary in here about how much you require? And that's what you have to figure out, because to some degree, they got to own it themselves. But on the other hand, there's a certain amount of safety that's involved with cleanliness. If you have a fire and you trip over, the junk in the floor, that's going to be a problem. Sometimes it's not preventable. People step on stuff, they break things if it's too cluttered, etc.
Legos.
Yeah. So what'd you do? What's your view?
Well, yeah, it really is up to you as a parent, and then stick with whatever the rule is. But basically, our kids had to make up their beds in the morning. And we had there was one room, 3 boys lived together in one small room. So was it pristine? No. But basically by bedtime, there's a path to the door. Stuffed animals who multiply during the night. I don't know how. They're up on your beds or wherever, and as much as you can have bins and stuff for everything. We have fortunately had great closets. So a lot of stuff was put in there.
Sometimes one of the brothers,
but
not with our permission.
But so basically you decide what your standards are. But I don't know, it wasn't it was, yes, you keep your room neat enough, and then the as far as household maintenance, the vacuuming and stuff, that was kind of a little bit separate issue. But we almost all of our kids shared rooms. So then it's well, it's not my mess, it's their mess. So then it was okay, then we're all pitching in. We're all, if we can't figure out whose mess it is, we're all going to clean it up.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of hints that are, I think, helpful. One is separate clean from messy, or something like that. Mm-hmm. So you can get things neat, but they're not exactly clean. You wouldn't eat off the floor, but at least nothing's on it. And make cleaning a separate thing, because we do want things clean too. But a bathroom can be at least orderly, and then weekly you clean it or whatever takes.
That was a good thing to
make that decision.
Neat and messy is one thing.
Yeah, the other thing is, what do you model? So if you are relatively clean, that models the right thing, and you can have a minimum standard. You got to decide how clean. What does that mean? Did they make their bed? Did you make them make their bed?
Yeah, I said, yeah.
I wouldn't listen. I was
That's just one of my things.
Yeah. So you and Jordan Peters, they like to make beds. Yeah. So you can have a minimal standard, but I can tell you this: if you want your house to be clean, or at least neat. All you have to do is have company over regularly. Like if you'll have company over every week, your house will stay much nicer. It's just a reality of it. The less you engage with other people, the more junk and mess happens. And that can be the same on the rooms, etc. But for the most part, I would go in and I'd say, look, I'd tell the kids, like cleaning the homeschool room or organizing it. I'd say, I want to show you how to do this. So we're going to stop and get a picture in our head of what it would look like if it were clean. And so we talked about it. Well, things would be in drawers, nothing be on the floor. The books would be pushed in and set up straight, whatever we did. And we talked about it until they got a clear picture of what it would look like if it were ordered compared to what it looked like right then. So we got that. And then I would give them a deadline and I'd go, all right, y'all got 10 minutes and I'm going to come back and inspect. Ready, go. And then I'd leave. Oh, and then dad has 1 more minute. Dad's coming back for inspection. Like it was a big deal, a big challenge. And then I'd go in there and then I'd point out, look, y'all didn't do this and this. Our picture was this and you got that. And it was like, oh yeah. So it was a learning thing. I don't know. I made it kind of a game, maybe I give them 5 minutes. I can't remember, but it doesn't take that much, but it takes that game of getting a picture of what order would look like. So they know what you expect and then compare it to what it is and then give them a frame of when it's done. When the kids got older, they couldn't start their weekend until their room was okay or something like that. We had some deadlines for different things that I recall. And then you always have someone, we had one that plates of food were found a year later somewhere hidden in his room after he'd gone to college. And it's like, really? This is just not right. He's very diligent now. He has his own yard. He works hard in it, in his own house, and it's always neat. So that's that's that game. I may have gone a little long on that one, but yeah, it's fun. Let's see. Anxiety, we did that. Different season for me. True. Reading, yes, my daughter hates math as well, but I make it fun. Started reading about this age readiness. Thanks, good advice. I'm glad you liked that. That was helpful. Makes sense. Someone else just wrote, Beth just added, I've been listening to How to Win Friends and Influence People. That goes back to a few weeks ago. We talked about this, one of our kids. She said, my kiddos in the car. The story you shared of how Jody told one of your kiddos rather, to read that book when he was having some angst over making friends, motivated me to reread it on Audible with my kids.
That's great.
Yeah, so that's great. So Audible's great, which I've used. I've recently, past year, have used something called Scribe D. So it's SCRIB and the letter D. I can type it in this one. So Scribe D. And what it is, it's a service. You don't own the books, but you have access to many more, both ebooks that you can read and audios you can listen to. So I do that all the time, and they have most of them, quite frankly. So it's I don't know how they do it, but so it's like a library, actually. So you're actually getting the opportunity to listen to all kinds of books, and I can listen to some and don't like them, or I can look at one and find out if I like it without having to make the purchase. And everybody may figure out that model, but I've been very pleased with that. Just a camper's tip. I'm not compensated in the least for it. All right, we got 15 more minutes. What other questions are on your mind? What kinds of things are you wrestling with? So here's an interesting question. Would it be too hokey for kids to create a vision board of what they want to be and do in the future? I don't know about too hokey. It can be hokey. It's, vision boards are fine. They you could even do it with something like even vacation. To think, if people like to do what they call them, collages or something like that, different pictures, put them together. The data on this is kind of mixed, if it works or doesn't. What I would say you probably want to do is hit it in multiple ways. So you want a child to learn to use their imagination to be able to picture, but their brain, it's not that we think with pictures. We actually think with words, but we use pictures. So we have these words and these images, and most of us, there's maybe 3% of people who have anaphasia or something, there's some name for it, that they can't picture. So especially for someone like that, they could get some visuals. A board would be fine about their future. Kids don't exactly know their future. So if they can practice it on small things, like a picture of cleaning the room, a picture of how it's going to be to go play with their friends, a picture of what it's going to be like when we get through school today, a picture of what it's going to be like to go to grandmom's house. Anything you can do that can teach them to get in their mind a vision of how they want it to turn out. The reason that's valuable is it informs the actions you need to take. Just like you do it for a meal. If you're having people over, we're going to have a meal, we're going to have these things. Well, all that stuff, plates are out, decorations, what you call it, the candles or, flowers or whatever you put on the table, and the ambiance stuff, and the food, and where it's accessible, picture of how you get water, or sodas or whatever to drink. And those things in your mind about how this evening will go inform you where to put things, how to place it, what to do, what needs to be done, etc. So anything that practices that sort of thing, I think is quite valuable. There's another piece, and that is when you learn to think visually, you can solve problems faster, but you also can hold on to a lot more information. Today, Jody and I were talking about a switch that's behind a bookshelf, and I turn a ceiling fan on, but I have to use a long dowel to do it. But I told you, instead of looking up in there which to go, I have a very systematic way of lifting up because I know which switch it needs to hit and the angle of the dowel. It sounds complicated, but it's not. But it's a very consistent way to do it, but I can do it because the way I pictured it. And so the more your children can learn to picture an outcome they want, the more effective they're going to get at producing that outcome. And it's similar if you have our memory course, going through that material in terms of learning to use this ability that we have to have pictures. I'm not talking about manifesting reality. I'm not Asaroff or whoever develops the vision boards. So I'm not talking about any of that stuff. Much more of a pragmatic science thing, not magic. It's just if you get a clear picture of what you want, then figuring out the steps and the sequence of steps kind of becomes obvious, if I can say it that way. What do you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I don't know that a vision board's going to hurt in any way, but I think what you're saying, it's a different thing. Teaching someone to visualize and to think through the steps, and okay, we want to get here. What's it going to take? We're here, and we need to get here. It's going to take something to get there, and so teaching them to do it in here is great, and using some aids, pictures and stuff, that's fine too. I think they're two different. I guess I'm thinking those are two different things, kind of.
Well, the challenge is everybody, I think, can picture. What you're really wanting to do is teach them how to get good at it, develop the skill.
Yeah, it's something to work on,
right,
and get better. And
like
better.
running. Most kids can run, but when you run cross country or track or something, they teach you how to run better. Beth adds, I will check out the memory course, ! Tried to get the kids to see how their actions or lack thereof regarding homeschool work impact their future. Excellent. They don't see the long-term implications of not doing what they're supposed to do. How can we help the kids to do that? So kids are especially not good at long-term things. They don't get the connection. And this is true, even truer as they're younger. As they age, they get better because you get more abstraction. You can fiddle with time and think out ahead. But for the most part, most of our motivations need to be more immediate. Two kids play in the sandbox. One can throw sand on one and then be off playing. And by the time the one's gotten upset about it enough to come back and sock them, they don't know what it's about because there's a delay in the system. This is one of the things that happens even in companies. There's a delay in the system. They don't know why something's happening that they set in motion earlier. So it's not unique to your kids, unique to everyone. What I would encourage you to do, Beth, is to just do shorter term things. It doesn't have to be about their long-term future. And sometimes it's more pragmatic, like, hey, you're going to have to do extra work in the afternoon and not get to play when everybody's playing. Now imagine that. How does that feel? And if they imagine it doesn't feel good, you'll probably see them take actions to get it done sooner. It's the same with any consequence as well as pluses. You know, once I got our sons to have a vision for the two when they were older teens, if they would solve their conflicts without yelling and fighting or us hearing it, and they did it for a month, they could get a day off school. That was part of the game. If they argued, we'd make them write an essay entitled "Why He's Wrong and I'm Right." You have to read it before one of the judges and us. And the winner would go get tres leches with mom and dad at Chewy's downtown, and the loser would move rocks in the backyard. And we're loaded with rocks in the Texas Hill Country. So I just get it simpler or more near in about what does a room look like when you do this? What does a paper look like when you do it? When you organize your desk, what does that look like? When we open presents with dad for his birthday, what's that going to look like? Anything short term that you can get them to look at how they want to picture it going, how they want to see things happening. That's the practice they need. It doesn't have to be, you know, this is going to ruin your ability to be a doctor. You know, I'm just 9. Right. So that's just, it's hard for them to grasp that, but more near in things are better. But for the most part, a lot of what we're doing is like Karate Kid stuff: wax on, wax off, paint the fence, wax the car. There's another one. I forget what it was. Sand, right? And then it comes together why you learn those skills. Look, your kids really don't have to understand complex math when they're little or why math works that way. They don't have to understand much of anything you're doing, because someday they actually will. It'll make sense. Oh, that's why you do it. Maybe they'll appreciate you. They probably won't. But, I know all our kids showed up and went to college and wound up realizing, whoa, we can read. This is amazing. Or my daughter just got a job and she had to read a book and write a analysis of it for this boss that was going to hire her, the boss's boss, the owner of the region or something. And I read her letter analysis of the book. It was awesome. It was amazing. I shouldn't have been surprised, but she's not the one that writes the most in the family. The boys all tend to write, but it was great. And it was great in part because she's great, but she also grew up in a system that didn't know she'd have to write that, but knew she needed to write. So we taught her a skill. And that's what I'd tell you all: make homeschooling about skill development. Don't make it about knowledge or competition with the school system or anything like that. What skills you're developing, and especially that reading, that writing, and that math, you're growing that skill. You're not just getting through the material. It's a skill: reading comprehension, skill, writing, articulating in their own voice in an understandable way. When someone reads it out loud, it makes sense. Skill. Get the idea? Excellent. So yeah, I mean, my understanding of education shifted a good bit when I started figuring this out, that it's skill development, because then you're teaching them to learn how to learn. That's what we were up to. And we wanted to raise happy adults. If they're happy as kids, that's a bonus, but that wasn't the point. So we're helping them learn these skills, and, practice is how you get skills, and people don't enjoy practice for the most part. But so what? Lots of things you don't enjoy. It pays off someday. Just hang in there and trust me. And then when you have kids and homeschool, you can do it your way. But this is our way. And, I'm going to love you through it, as it were. Let's see. Val says, I'd like to hear Jody's experience. I know when somebody tells me to shut up. I'd like to hear Jody's experience with having good women friends to the busiest times of homeschooling. What did that look like? Did you feel like you were able to have adequate support through those years? Any advice on how to have connections that give you adequate friendship and support? I have 6 kids and I can't read that, but it's
Something to
ages
16,
something to
yeah.
16, 5 to 16, it looks like.
I really did. We had a really supportive church and homeschool community in Midland. It's a smaller town, and it's very easy to get to people's homes. A lot of people that were in the church, we were also homeschooling together, had the same age kids, some within even walking distance of our house. So I really did have a very supportive community of people, of women.
But how'd you get there?
And I'm very introverted, and so that takes work. It takes cultivation, and you're right, it does take time to form those relationships, and especially to vulnerability to form intimate relationships. But I was very fortunate to have a lot of support there, and so a lot of it was through church.
Yeah,
I would say
Jody's not going to remember, so I'm going to tell you, and then she's going to go, oh yeah, that's what happened.
Well, this happens a lot, so
Okay. Well, no, on this kind of thing.
No, I just mean
because you were engaged in the game.
Gotcha.
You weren't watching it. So what happens with Jody? So I realized this early on. Jody really didn't have much in the way of really close friends. She was very friendly. She was very popular, but intimate friendships wasn't exactly your thing, you know? And so what somehow I've realized that the trick to friendship is repeated experiences together. You got to keep doing things together. That's how it works. That's how dating works, how anything works. And I remember Laura's Miss Extrovert, but she at first, her freshman year, halfway through it, said, I'm not making friends. And I said, yeah, because you're like a little hummingbird, butterflies, flower to flower, and all these people, all these people, but you don't really deeply know people, because that takes repeated times. And I suggested, why don't you have somebody you'd like to know? Why don't y'all set a time to have coffee every week? Just that's our time. And if one of us can't make it, that's fine, but it's our time. And we hang out. And she started doing that, and enough of those experiences take care of it. It's the same thing with living with roommates. Doesn't work out a lot of times, but if you find a good roommate you can hang out with, that's great. So with Jody, I realized that when in seminary, I realized, she's not going to make friends. She'll work. She was teaching school, et cetera, while I was going to class. And what we did is moved into seminary housing. And everybody thought, oh, you want to be out there in the real world. But I didn't. I wanted to study. And so, but what it did is it forced her in a close proximity. And so she had a neighbor across the hall, and then they talked, and then they talked some more, and then they developed into friendship. And it was the same thing with people at church. Jody would show up for a Bible study or a social event, et cetera. And enough repeated experiences, you start finding people that you have stuff in common in. And if you keep doing that, you can build depth of relationships. That's how it goes. But it just takes some time. It's like, you reap as you sow. It's that principle. And, if you want to have friends, you need to be friendly, but you need to keep showing up, keep doing things over and over again. Just like with your own kids, the more people they play with at the time together, play together, the closer they are. We have kids that aren't quite as close as some of the others because the older ones were out, when Trip wasn't playing what some of these were playing, it just wasn't the same game. So it's always that experience in terms of building those relationships, but it's really finding someone that there's some attraction, some connection, and then repeated experiences over and over. And so, this is where play dates would come in.
Yeah.
Y'all go hang out, isn't that right?
Meet
Meet the park, let the
whatever.
kids play, and y'all hang out.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of game. friendship equals repeat experiences together. Yeah, it makes it, and it is. It just is. You just got to keep repeating them. And by the way, I'll tell you one more hint about friendship, and I'll let you go. If you want to really not be bitter about frustrations that happens with friends, because they will, people will move away, they'll turn on you, they'll do stuff, and they're people. So look, here's what you want to do. Set in your mind that friendship has in it kind of a competition, and the competition is to see who can be the better friend. And I'm telling you, it saved me a lot, because I've had people, especially as a pastor, people get mad at you for different reasons, and they'd leave, but I never gave up on anybody. So I won, and then a lot of those friendships very commonly came back around, reconnected and reestablished. But my goal was always to be the better friend. So I didn't think, I called him last time, his turn to call me. No, there's some people we would never talk if I didn't call, but I just called them. So I'm winning. I want to be the better friend. I want them to be a good friend, but I'm going to be the better friend. I'm going to be more loyal, more available. I'm going to keep sowing to that friendship, and I'm going to win that competition. That's the way I think about it. Maybe I'm too competitive, but that's the thought. All right. This was loads of fun. I hope you found this helpful. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go to Independent Homeschool if you want to see our videos and how we kind of approach school. Share it with your friends, all that kind of stuff. We're just trying to promote the cause, and I hope you all have